Cities are defined by their cultures. Those cultures could entail sports or business or certainly arts and entertainment. Oklahoma City is thriving in all of these areas. But who makes that all happen? This Town OKC explores the people behind the cultures, their origins, their motivations, their challenges, and their dreams. I'm Rick Allen Lippert. I've been in this town for over 50 years with a front row seat to seeing the culture grow from a dusty bus stop on the Southern Plains to a flourishing destination. Join me as we meet the folks behind the culture on This Town OKC. Ashley Wells, thank you for being on This Town OKC.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
I'm excited to have you here. This is kind of an evergreen podcast. I don't really want to talk about current events, but I got to say your recent production of Oklahoma and before that, Beautiful, were just phenomenal.
Well, thank you so much. We were so excited to be able to do Oklahoma again, especially after the tour that had come through town.
Yeah.
The recent revival that was done, we were excited to do a classic version to be able to cleanse the palates of Oklahomans so they can rally around their state musical.
I've been telling people, even told Jim Reynolds yesterday, definitive production, quintessential definitive production.
Thank you. I think it's been a long time since Oklahomans have seen actually a non-cut version, meaning every single note that was written was done. We did the Agnes DeMille original choreography, and I don't know when the last time it was that her choreography has been done on stage, but we were lucky enough to get permission to do that. So you heard every note, you heard every word that was written in the script, and it was very exciting. Hence the length of the show.
Yes. Yes.
But you got the true version.
Loved every minute of it. But now let's get back to you and your story. This is an oral history of you, Ashley Wells. Where are you from? You're a local girl.
I am, yes, sir. I was born and raised right here in Oklahoma City. Went to school at Westminster Elementary and then went to Heritage Hall for middle school and high school and graduated.
College?
College, I went to Oklahoma City University for 2 years as a dance major. I had the distinct pleasure of working or learning under Jo Rowan, the amazing Jo Rowan, which if you have not spoken to her, I highly suggest you have a conversation with her. And then after that, I actually ended up going to a conservatory in Arlington, Texas. I grew up dancing my entire life. I grew up with, at the time, called Ballet Oklahoma under Joe and Stephanie Spazoff. So I started my dance career here in Oklahoma. And so, like I said, went to Oklahoma City University, but I wanted to go into musical theater. And I thought, well, I need to learn to sing and act. I know how to dance. And at the time, Oklahoma City University was not giving those opportunities to dance majors. If the acting class was full, then I wasn't able to get in that because I wasn't in the acting department. Or maybe there was a voice studio that I wanted to get into, but it was full because I wasn't a musical theater major or I wasn't, a music major. So I ended up going to a conservatory and studied acting and voice, and of course, certainly kept dancing as well, too, and then graduated from Mountain View Conservatory.
You developed a love for musical theater as a child.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing from your mother.
Yes, my mother is Paula Stover, and we have been season ticket holders. She's been a season ticket holder of Lyric Theater. Oh, I would probably say early 70s. I mean, I grew up Saturday night. We were on the fourth row at Oklahoma City University every summer for all the shows at Lyric Theater. And my first time I auditioned for Lyric was, I was 16 years old. And after the summer was over, I learned that I was the youngest person to audition and then proceed to get hired for the entire summer. So I was the youngest ensemble member that had been hired at the time. And that launched the love.
What was the show?
Well, let's see. What was that season? It was Pippin, Evita. I might be getting my summers mixed up, Rick. I'll get back to you. Barnum, and I'm trying to remember what the fifth one was.
Oh, my. 5 shows?
Yeah, we did 5 shows starting at OCU. When we were at OCU, it was a 5-show summer. So you would rehearse during the day, do a show at night, and then turn around. So we would open on a Tuesday night, turn around on Wednesday, and start rehearsing. So we would rehearse during the day and then do the show that you had just opened at night. You did that for 5 shows. It was crazy.
Sounds
It was crazy.
grueling.
I would say it was a young person's gig, that is for sure, to be able to handle that. But, what else are you going to do in the summer, right?
Right.
I
when
loved
your
it.
love
I
is
loved
musical
every minute.
theater,
Absolutely.
living the dream.
So, yeah, that's what started it off, was that summer. And then I worked at Music Theater of Wichita. I worked at Casa Manana. In fact, Casa Manana introduced me to working at different theaters, but doing the same show. Casa Manana had a connection with North Shore Music Theater. Anyway, so we rehearsed and did the show at Casa, and then once we closed at Casa Manana, we would then travel the show to North Shore in Massachusetts, and I loved it. I stayed in this woman's house and would travel back and forth on bus to the theater, and I'm like, what is this world I'm living in? I'd only ever done, Lyric or MTW, Music Theater Wichita, and so it was really exciting to get that.
And you're early 20s at this point?
Yes, sir.
How exciting! Yes, sir. Somewhere along this time, you earned your equity card, I'm guessing.
Actually, I did not get my equity card until I got the national tour of Hello, Dolly. So, while at my high school and college career, I performed in regional theaters like Music Theater Wichita and those that I just spoke of. And then once I graduated from Mountain View, I moved to New York. Like everybody, of course, I'm gonna be a star.
Right.
So moved to New York and then auditioned. I worked at a few other theaters in upstate New York and various things like that. But then Matthew Cypress, who I had worked with, I'd gone to school with at Oklahoma City University. We had done lyric theater together. He was in New York, and he said, Ashley, you need to audition for Hello, Dolly. And I had seen this audition posting, but it said they wanted women 6 feet and taller. And I said, Matthew, you saw that ad in backstage at the time. You actually found out the audition notices were in a newspaper that you got on the corner of the street. You would pick it up every week because there would be a new episode, whatever you want to say.
Issue, new issue.
Yes, sir. New issue every week. Anyway, and I said, well, Matthew, what do you mean? I'm not 6 feet tall. Hello, you've known me since college. What are you talking about? He said, Ashley, Leroy Reams is directing, and you worked with Leroy at Casa Manana doing La Cage aux Folles. I played Anne in La Cage, and Leroy played Zaza. And that was another amazing summer and amazing experience that I had. And he said, just come to the audition. And I was like, well, okay, but that's kind of a waste of my time. I end up going to the audition, and at the time, unbeknownst to me, one of the gentlemen that they had hired had also backed out. And so they were looking for shorter gentlemen in the next room. So the women are auditioning in one room and the men are auditioning in another room. And they ended up needing, because it had already been cast, so they already had the sizes and the costumes worked out. So here I am, little old Ashley, 5'4", with all these 6 foot tall ladies. And I'm sure when I walked in, everybody looked at me like, what are you doing here? Again, unbeknownst to me, then the next room, they were looking for shorter men to replace this person that had left. And so Leroy Reams was in there, and he saw me. He said, Ashley, what are you doing here? I said, Matthew was the one that told me I needed to come. Matthew and Leroy had worked together. And he said, well, it's so great to see you. I'm glad that you're here. And
Leroy's directing, right?
Leroy's directing, yes, sir. Leroy's directing. Carol Channing was also in the room. I should say this was Hello, Dolly with Carol Channing. So it was the revival production with her in the lead. The choreographer at the time, Mr. Bateman, he was not happy that I was there because I'm not 6 foot tall. So let's put it this way. It was kind of a cold audition room for me, if that makes sense. I just did my thing because I thought, what am I doing? 2 weeks later, I get a phone call saying, Ashley, we'd like for you to be in the national tour of Hello Dolly. And this is at the time of pagers, Rick. So my pager goes off. I find a payphone in New York City. I was actually in Central Park. I remember it perfectly. Get my quarter out. I put my quarter in. I call the phone number on the pager. This is Ashley Stover. That's my name before I got married. And they said, well, we would like to, welcome you to the company of Hello Dolly with Carol Channing. And I was in shock. I was in complete shock. So, what is happening? I'm still not 6 feet tall. What are you thinking?
I'm sure it's just that this is an otherworldly experience.
Completely. I'm in the middle of Central Park on some, payphone. Like, what is happening? My life's getting ready to change completely. And so I immediately call Matthew. So, Matthew, do you know what happened? And then he told me in the next room, they ended up hiring a shorter person. And in that audition room, there was nobody that could be that gentleman's partner. That gentleman is Randy Slavacek, who was my partner. And so you were the only one in the room that was going to be able to, be his partner. And that's how I got my first equity gig and national tour, and then proceeded to go to Broadway.
Wow.
So I had my Broadway debut with that show as well.
Oh, my
Isn't that
goodness.
crazy?
That's a great
It's just a crazy story. Because if I hadn't gone to the audition, my life would be completely different.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And it just illustrates the absurdity of the industry.
You're absolutely right. The absurdity of the industry. They needed a partner for a shorter gentleman.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really. And it did help that I had worked with Leroy.
Of course.
So Leroy could attest to my work ethic and how I'm going to be and, all that stuff. As you know, this business is small, and who you work with and how you work with them is very important.
I've had people tell me you don't ever want to lie on a resume of who you worked with, because the person you're lying to probably has worked with the person that you're saying you worked with.
100%. And I do a lot of the casting for Lyric now, and so I see resumes and I can see, no, you weren't in that production that I directed. There've even been things where I've seen you have my name on something that I didn't do, or
that has to be an awkward moment.
It is. It is definitely
for the actor.
Yes. Yeah.
So your first Broadway show was Hello Dolly.
Hello
So
Dolly.
it toured before it played in New York?
It did. Yes, we opened in Denver in 92. So we toured for 2 years. I think I have my dates right. It's been a minute. We toured for 2 years, and then we did our last show at the Kennedy Center before we went into Broadway in 94. And then we played for about a year on Broadway. And then it actually went back out on the road. I don't know if I can say this on your podcast. We affectionately called it the Rape and Pillage Tour after Broadway.
Oh, please do. Expound on that.
I'll expound on that. So pre-Broadway, we were, what was considered First National, right? So we flew to every city, right? We would stay in cities for a week or 2 weeks. We were able to have trunks. They actually don't do trunks anymore, but each actor could have their own trunk full of next season's clothing. Because think about it, you could only have 2 suitcases.
Yeah.
Back then you didn't have to pay for luggage like you do now. But so we could only travel with 2 suitcases with us. So if it's summertime, once it comes around to winter, you can't carry your winter clothes as well. So everybody had a trunk that would then, go on the semi-trucks. We also had something called a jump truck. So once we would open in a city, we had a completely separate truck with a different floor that would go ahead and go to the next city, so the floor could be put down for us before we would get there. Anyway, so it was wonderful, and stayed in great hotel rooms, and that was before you could do Airbnbs. A lot of tours now, the actors just do Airbnbs. So we stayed in hotel rooms, and then we went to Broadway, and of course then most people lived in New York, so you just stayed home. And then it went back out on the road. We called it the Rape and Pillage Tour because it was a bus and truck. So we didn't fly anywhere. We would do maybe 2-3 days in a city and then turn around. So you would do a Tuesday, Wednesday night in one city, travel on Thursday, open in another city, and do Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then do that again. and then you'd be on a bus the whole time, right? So
Yes, I can see why it would be cold.
it was a little rough compared to what we'd had before.
When you're doing a bus and truck tour like that, and you do a Tuesday, Wednesday, travel on Thursday, open on Friday night, is there a run-through Friday afternoon?
No. Oh, no. Once we opened, we never had a run-through because you're doing the show every night.
Right.
We might have put-ins, so if a swing had to go in, there would be certain numbers that we would do with that swing to put them in. Maybe there would be a brush-up rehearsal. Maybe, we were getting lazy and our dancing number or things like that. But no, there was never a run through. Now, there was always sound check, and Carol always did the Hello Dolly number for sound check, and they did it in its entirety with the choreography and everything, no costumes or anything. But that would be the only number that would be completely done, and that was the sound check.
Did that second tour play Oklahoma City? Because I saw Carol in Dolly with my wife, and we got married in 95.
Yeah, it was after, yes, thank you. It was after the Broadway opening. When we went back out on the road, we came through Oklahoma. And that was, I will have to say, that was really wonderful. Carol was great. If we were ever in a town that was somebody's in the company's town, during bows, she would bring them out specifically. After her bow, she would reference the person, and then that person could, step forward, and then they took another bow.
Did you get to do that?
I did, yes.
Yay, how about that?
Yeah, it was really great to be in the Civic Center, because at the time, I had never performed in the Civic Center because
Lyric was at the Kirkpatrick Theater at OCU.
Exactly. So she was really great.
When you were in town for Dolly on that tour, did you get any special press like they sometimes do now when there's a local person in the touring show?
Not as much. I remember having a conversation with one of the radio stations at the time. I feel like it was 104.1, but not as much as what they do now. That's for sure.
What did you do after Dolly?
After Dolly, well, you do what every other actor does once a show closes, right? You go back to auditioning and audition and audition and audition. And I'll tell you, Rick, because you're in this business, so you'll get this. There was a moment in that time, as everybody says, like you think, oh, I'm on Broadway, right? So this is it. I'm not ever going to have trouble getting a job. And that's not the case. I mean, all the Broadway stars that you see out there, their next show, they still have to audition for. They still have to get in front of the producers. They still have to work, right? I mean, maybe if you're Kelly O'Hara or Audra McDonald, you get the phone call, right? But it took them a long time to get to that point.
Right.
So, I'm thinking it's going to be easy, but audition.
Are you having to supplement your income with waitressing jobs?
Oh, yes. Do you want to know one of the best jobs that I did in New York?
Oh, of course.
Are you ready for this?
Yes.
I can't believe I'm going to say this. I was a bathroom attendant at Planet Hollywood.
Do tell.
On 57th Street. So at the time, I can't believe this. The men and women's bathroom, when you would go in, they make sure there's someone in there making sure that the paper towels are stocked, that you have all the soap. Would you like a little spritz of cologne? With just that little extra, your attendant.
Exactly, yeah.
I was not in, I now know it was probably a little sketch. I was not employed by Planet Hollywood per se. I got tips, so it was all cash. But then at the end of the night, I had to proceed to pay for my shift. I'm doing quotes with my hands. So I don't even remember what it was.
You had to pay someone for the privilege of working there.
Yes, but I will say.
You had to pay your pimp.
I did.
In a manner of speaking.
Well, and I did learn afterwards that, the owner of this, enterprise was on some, beach in Costa Rica or something. Like these envelopes of cash would just be mailed to him. Like, it's so ridiculous. I look back on it and go, how did I end up doing that? But you know what? It was cash, and I did really well for myself.
I'll bet you did.
I really did. I proceeded to then eventually go upstairs. The bathrooms were downstairs, and I became a hostess at Planet Hollywood. But I made my most money there. I also sold sunglasses. I did, I worked at Macy's. And actually, one of the jobs I loved the most was just a temp job. And so a temp job, I would go somewhere different every single week. And I usually would end up being, at the time, you would answer phones for a law office or file. I worked for a big athletic company that they just needed data entry of all of the people that were members of their athletic. And you just go in and you do your job and you leave. And every single job that I had in the temp agency, they said, we love performers. In fact, I got full-time job offers almost every time I left a temp job because I go in, I do my job, and I leave. I didn't ask any I did my thing.
Right.
And it didn't take me long to do it. Most of the time, I'd be done before the hours were up. And so, and I think performers just have that mentality.
Right.
You give me it, you tell me what to do, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
That's the way it is. So, anyway.
Getting back to the bathroom attendant, I just want to mention the first time I went into a men's room when there was somebody there handing me a towel, I was quite suspicious. It's like, why is this guy being nice to me?
Right. Well, and especially in New York, But Planet Hollywood also, they catered to tourists. So the majority of the people are, out of town, out of country, out of, New Yorkers didn't go to Planet Hollywood. I mean, that was not some place. I don't even know if that restaurant
The only time I've been to a Planet Hollywood was as a tourist in Chicago.
Yep.
Oh, well. I did write a short play one time that featured a bathroom attendant.
Did you?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I would love to read that.
Yeah.
Because I have stories.
I'm sure you do.
Holy smokes.
I'm sure you do. Well, we don't have time for all of those. Let's move on.
Back to after Dolly and auditioning. I actually got really tired of the auditioning, and I thought, you know what? I need something different. I'm getting a little depressed living here in New York, and I decided, you know what? As most New Yorkers do, I'm going to go to California. And I'm going to be a movie star. Isn't that what happens, Rick?
Yes, it is.
Just immediately. So I did. I moved to California, and I did a couple commercials, right? But I needed a eat job, and so I started working in a casting office. The casting company is what it was called, Jane Jenkins and Janet Hershenson, and they did all of Ron Howard's films. And I learned the casting business, and I fell in love with it.
Oh, good.
I really loved it. And it was funny, they were impressed with me because I would always do the pre-auditions, the pre-reads of people before they would go to Jane and Janet or before they would go to the producers or even the director. So there was this whole system that you would do to do the pre-screenings. And they told me, they said, why are your pre-screenings so good? Everybody's so relaxed in your castings. What's going on? And I said, because I've been on the other side of the table. I know what they're feeling. I know those nerves. I know what's going on. So I'm able to have, just a conversation with them, trying to calm them down as opposed to, making them nervous.
Right.
And so, I don't know, it was interesting. I kind of felt like I found my calling in
How
California.
long were you there?
I was there for 2.5 years. Mm-hmm.
And did you come back to Oklahoma from that, or what was next?
What was next? So actually what happened next was I fell in love with my husband, Bart Wells.
Okay.
And he was actually in Florida, and I was in California. We had met at actually Oklahoma City University, and our paths recrossed, and fell in love, and he asked me to marry him. And then we were like, okay, who's going to move? You coming to California? Because we both had great careers. He was working for Walt Disney World at the time. And so he said, well, you know what? I'll just move to Disneyland. Like, let me come to California and I'll get a job at Disneyland. That seems like the most reasonable thing because you have an amazing job with this casting company. And what he didn't know at the time was that I was actually next up to do the pre-screens for Harry Potter. There's some little movie you might have called Harry Potter. So I knew that was on the horizon. So he starts the steps to transfer. But you might not know this. We learned this, Rick, but Disneyland and Disney World are completely two different organizations.
I did not know that.
I know, right? We didn't either. He figured he could just transfer.
Yeah.
And just like any other corporation, so when he started there, he started at the bottom rung as a technician. And by the time we were together, he was at a top top tiered. I think they have like 1, 2, 3, 4 level. And they said, well, you wouldn't be a transfer, but you can apply and get a job at Disneyland, but you'd start off at level 1.
Oh.
And we're like, what? Really? Like, what is happening? So anyway, long story short, we decided, well, no, it was more important for me to go to Florida. So I moved to Florida. And it wasn't until after the move I told him, well, I'm not getting to do the Harry Potter pre-screens.
Oh, darn.
But, love and life, that's what it was. No, it was absolutely perfect. I loved every minute of it. And then I proceeded to work for a casting agency, Herb Mandel Casting in Orlando, Florida. And it's interesting to go from movies to commercials. So Florida is known for, because you can shoot commercials year round there, right? Like in the wintertime, you can still shoot for summer commercials. So I had to learn that whole new world. Movie world, you work on it, 6 months, years in advance, the casting process. Commercials, you get a call on a Monday and the commercial is shooting on a Friday.
Right.
Whoa. What is this world? This is crazy.
Yeah.
So I had to flip and learn that. And then Herb ended up passing away, and he actually left his casting clientele to me, and I started Stover Wells Casting.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know, my life.
So why did you not continue that? Or do you still do it?
Well,
is that a side hustle?
So I did it for the whole time that Bart and I were in Florida. I had Stover Wells Casting. I did I did commercials for Disney World and Universal and various different things. And then our life took a turn again, and Bart was not very happy at Disney at the time. And we in all honesty, we both didn't love Florida. It might sound crazy, but
no, not at all. Not to me.
I love it that someone else gets that. Around Christmas time, we would both get depressed and like, why is it 80 degrees? We want it to feel like Christmas. Anyway, so we were just on this personal journey of what's next up. And then actually Bart got a job offer from Dale Hall at Oklahoma City University, because that was his mentor, and asked if Bart would want to come back home and be assistant. It was either assistant or associate technical director at OCU. And of course, the two of us never thought we'd move back to Oklahoma. And the money offer was not going to be conducive. And so we said thanks, but no thanks. And literally, Rick, a week after that, we found out that I was pregnant with our first child.
Okay.
And we both said, oh, we're not raising a kid here. And he called Dale back and said, is that job still open? And he said, sure is. And came back to Oklahoma. And so at this point, I'm like, okay, wait a minute. What am I going to do?
Because you have an ongoing business.
Yeah. I will say at that point in time, it was interesting. The commercial business started to fall off a little bit in Orlando for everybody, not just me. So I wasn't quite as busy or quite, it wasn't quite as full as it had been, the year before. The universe works in mysterious ways, right? And so we came back home, and I thought, well, there's really not casting here. We didn't have the film industry like it has now. I mean, if we had what we had now, I would have just picked up and Stover Wells Casting. Here we go. And so I had to relearn what it meant to have that here. And I thought, okay, well, it's not that much. And Nick Demas was the artistic director at the time at Lyric, and he wanted to do Pippin, but he didn't know Fosse choreography, and he reached out and learned that I had come back home and said, I know you did Pippin, and I know that you learned from first-generation Fosse dancers. Would you want to choreograph Pippin with me? I'm like, well, yeah, it's been a long time since, now it's been, 3-4 years since, I'd been dancing. And I said, sure, I'd love to do that. And so I assisted Nick Demas on that, and then there was another show. He said, well, would you like to help choreograph this show? And, well, sure. And then the business office needed some help with doing contracts because it was not as large of a company as Lyric is now. And so then I started doing the contracts for all the actors. And then Nick said, you want to help me cast this next show? Sure. So, I mean, like, literally, it was just like baby steps. Oh my gosh, musical theater's calling me back. Here we go. And I could still have my love for casting.
Yes.
Because I
yes.
loved being in that casting room. So that's kind of how I got back here.
That's amazing.
The whole crazy
That's really
story.
amazing. I remember Nick. I remember, I really remember his cabaret, which I think was his swan song.
It was, yes. And I was actually in that production because he said, if I'm going to be in this is a quote, if I'm going to be in this, I want some other old farts in it with me. So he asked myself and Amy Reynolds-Reed to be some of the Kit Kat girls, so he didn't feel like he was the only. Like, great, thanks, Nick.
And I think we had bought our lyric tickets, season tickets, either that season or the season before. I really forget.
Okay.
But I do remember that show because I'll admit, a lot of the lyric shows, not necessarily my cup of tea.
Sure.
I was really excited to see Cabaret, and I thought he did a marvelous job, and I could see why it upset so many people.
It did. We might just leave it at that.
That's all I'm going to say.
It's really great. He dove into the story and the darkness of it because it is not a happy-go-lucky show that I think a lot of us think it is.
Yeah.
And so he dove into that. So I think a lot of people came to it with an idea of what they thought they were going to see.
Thinking they're going to see Joel Grey.
Ding, 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 and then they didn't. They said,
Right.
"Oh, wait a minute. This is really talking about some not pretty stuff here."
Right.
It made people think.
Your title at Lyric Theater of Oklahoma now is
Executive producer.
Executive producer. And how long have you had that title, and did you have another title in between?
So, yes, I've had the executive producer title since coming out of COVID, so since 2021.
Yeah.
In there. And before that, I was associate artistic director.
Okay.
And Michael Barron, who's now the producing artistic director, he felt like that the executive producer title, he actually took that from a different theater around the country to give me a better title for what it was I was actually doing.
Yeah.
Which was being in charge of the productions of each show and the actual financials of every single production, right? So if you think about our organization, you've got the administrative side that deals with development and marketing and all that, which has their own financials that they have to deal with. And then you actually have the production of a show, right? You have paying the actors and the set and the costumes and the lights and it's two worlds really that you have to keep track of.
Yeah.
And so I was keeping track of all the financials for the production side of things.
You do still get to direct and choreograph. Thankfully for that, because like I said at the beginning of this, your direction of Beautiful was beautiful itself.
Oh, thank you. I was so excited to work on that show. Yes, I'm very lucky. I get to work both sides of my brain, the artistic side and the maybe non-artistic side. I do get to direct. I don't choreograph quite as much anymore. I like to work with other choreographers, and I cast all the shows. So I'm actually, between Michael Barron and I, we cast all the shows, which I love that aspect of it. And then I deal with the production budgets.
Yeah, the fun stuff. Ashley Wells, thank you so much. This has been a real delight to have you on This Town OKC. You were on my list of people when I started this. I just had to get through your season before we could get here.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
This Town OKC is sponsored by Carpenter Square Theater because they let us record in the rehearsal studio, edited by Fred O. Bishop. I'm Rick Allen Lippert. This has been a Lippert Media production.